Welcome to Isn't It Obvious? I'm your host, Sera. Joining us, as you know, Phil, Micah.
8%
Micah's having a day.
fucking week.
So I've got a topic. Isn't it obvious? If merfolk existed, they would be stuck with primitive technology because of environmental limitations. They would not be able to have metal, is what I'm really getting at here.
Does merfolk, can they go to the surface and then metal?
Okay, there's two potentials here. Are they amphibious or are they strictly water?
You are making
aquatic.
the parameters. So are we saying as a xenomorphic species that they grew up on or they evolved on a water planet?
Let's say they are aquatic, not amphibious.
Aquatic, not amphibious. So they're like
They could maybe like a whale. They could survive on if they got beached or something. They would die without help.
No, but they need to
If tide went
surface out of the water in order to survive? Or they just have the ability to hold
Okay,
their
that's
breath
a good-
outside of water?
Oh, that's a good question too. I don't know. So there could be either. They could be 100% fish, so they breathe
So
through
they're
gills.
fish as opposed to amphibians.
Versus no. Whales are not amphibians.
But merfolk.
But
Yeah,
merfolk
but
are
there
are
are-
merfolk mammals or fish? Or
No,
are they
but there are amphibians that
No.
can exist in water
No.
and can exist in land.
No.
Okay, can I ask you?
They can't exist. They don't exist on land.
Just
they
to
don't live on land.
Just to clarify, are we talking about Ariel from Little Mermaid?
Let's
merfolk?
go with
Or were we talking about Aquaman? Because
Let's go
Aquaman's
with-
a merfolk.
Aquaman's an amphibian.
Okay, which one
And
is
Aquaman's
it?
a merfolk.
Yes, in his world. But I'm thinking Little Mermaid.
Little Mermaid
Okay,
merfolk.
But
So-
see, this doesn't work either because she can breathe in water or air. Yeah, so
Also, what's her voice?
Does she
really
have
weird?
lungs
Is it
and
Seashell,
gills?
bras, sorry.
Anyway, so I'm not really sure on this.
Are they
parameters.
capable of being able to breathe air, go to the surface, even if it's just that only half their body can really do much?
We might have to split this up into two different
So,
scenarios. then.
hypothetically, for the sake of this
Merf people.
merfolk are on a planet that is entirely water.
No.
There is, for the sake of what I think what you're trying to drive at, where their industry would come from.
No, we'll just say it's just a water. There is water on this planet, and they live in it. There could be land as well.
But they're not able to access resources on the land just for whatever reasons.
Yeah, that's the question. Are they able to access resources on the land? Much like how we access resources from the water, even though we are definitely terrestrial species.
I would say, oh boy, gosh, this opened up so many cans of worms here.
No, but
It'd be very dependent on whether or not they could.
Yes, right.
Exactly. So, do you want to go with the extreme that is an entire water planet
Let's
and
say
deal with that hypothetical?
let's say they could access it if it was near enough to shore where they could grab.
So,
or if
free
it
diving, they can hold their breath
fell-
for 5 minutes.
Right,
and do
okay.
stuff.
It's
Yeah,
just
let's
the exact
say-
opposite of the free divers.
Yeah.
But then, would you not have that same industry to then submerge that land by digging out canals in order to get at those resources?
How would they dig it out, though?
They got fingers.
got hands?
They got hands.
Yeah, but-
You know. I mean,
How
it
did
would.
we dig channels when we were hunter-gatherers? We got fucking our tools right here.
I mean,
I cite my
but
hands.
we also used
True.
we made tools out of bones and stones and
So
So-
merfolk can find bones,
bones and stones. But
Okay.
so that's what I'm saying.
we have
but that's primitive society,
Right,
and
so-
this is my premise: is they would be stuck in the primitive
Yeah.
because
I
they
disagree,
could never
Go to the
cross,
Bronze Age.
They could never cross
Yes,
over
they could.
into. They could never cross over into metalworking
So
Yeah.
if we're dealing with this hypothetical,
unless they were
and
amphibious.
if
Yes.
it's if it's the antithesis of our evolution, if we start on the bottom of the ocean and now we're here,
But
Get
we,
out of here, you
you
bullshit.
son of a bitch.
are there not superheated vents and other forms of
You
underwater magma?
you couldn't get close enough. You could not get close. The water is such a high conductor of heat that you could not get close enough to metalwork because the water is literally boiling lava hot. You would boil to death,
And you would have to form metal, you'd have to actually be hotter
and you have
than
to
the
be.
superheated.
And you can mold
Vents.
metal, but you can't temper
Smelt.
it. You can't
But-
smelt it.
You could not make a type of stone edifice of which to focus this.
How would you make this stone edifice?
How
would you-
built a lot of other things where you start
How do you get close
you
enough?
start from a certain parameter and start to
but how do you get close enough to this?
contain and focus it.
But how do you get close enough to this boiling lava hot area to make a feasible, workable
You
kiln
build
or
a
whatever?
stone tower around this vent,
just,
starting from a safe distance.
Like with bricks?
Yeah.
Like you just make bricks?
Or you find stones
Yeah.
and you just kind of...
Much like early humans, you would find some stone and something to bind it together.
So how do you get it into this, like, how do you get it into this area that's
jellyfish, the cement of the sea.
You're saying that if you can harness the energy of geysers for
But
Bespin gas purposes...
What I'm saying is you
chuck a drone on it and eventually it'll be a...
As a creature underwater, you would be boiled to death before you could get close enough to make this work. You wouldn't be able to, like, okay, maybe you could drop a stone from, like, way up high.
Just keep dropping stones from way up
high. Like, catapult it underwater, but you'd have to have some really weird, like...
Or you have...
But eventually you could, because the pyramid was not built in a day. That took many decades, centuries, however time frame, to move all of those things.
Probably not
Would
that
you
long.
not have that
Probably
type
not
of
that
similar
long.
mechanisms underwater?
I don't know, because, like, you'd have to have the tools to do it, right?
And you have the same tools.
Like, how?
You get bone and you get stone.
Okay, you got bone
and stone, folks.
Okay, bone and stone. All right. How do you put those together to make a tool? What's your cordage? How are you gonna...
Again, jellyfish. The cement of the sea.
That's not the cement. You can't just slap a jellyfish.
Okay.
No, you don't slap a jellyfish. You tie the jellyfish. Duh.
I think those little
Obviously.
stingy tentacles are not
What
going
about
to be...
seaweed? Does seaweed not have the same
kelp.
type of flaxen?
Kelp, maybe? Kelp
Yeah.
could maybe work.
Because early bindings was like, corn husks?
You could probably do kelp. I think kelp would maybe be strong enough to be cordage. So you could in theory use kelp, and you could tie a stone, like you could shape a stone into kind of like an axe, and you could tie it onto a bone or something.
With the jellyfish?
With kelp. And, okay, so you've got yourself an axe, or a weapon, or some kind of hammer.
But also, could you not find...
But what about the force? Your strength moving through the water is not going to be the same as the air.
Yeah, and dolphins are much stronger than humans.
They sure are, but...
Because they use all of their force. If you are an if you're an ambulatory species that is working as merfolks would underwater, you would also have an increased strength because you are working with all of that resistance.
Would you though? Because then you'd have to be like twice as big as what I'm envisioning a merfolk being, because you would have to have...
thinking they're elves of the sea.
Yep. Oh, that was a cat. But no, okay, so like I'm thinking, like, okay, then it wouldn't work if they'd have to be a certain size. They'd have to be like twice as strong.
We're trying to apply evolutionary facts to like fantasy.
Fantasy, yeah, these are just fake.
And this is
how are we going to make this work?
Right. So you have
obviously they have to have fingers or dexterous.
3 of them.
At least dexterous appendages.
Opposable thumb.
Yeah, some kind of. Yeah.
A pincer of some sort. So really it's crab people.
No, I mean, maybe. But crustaceans can, like, go out of the water and survive out of the water for quite a long time. So, yes, crustacean people would work, but not fish people.
Shrimp are crustaceans.
Okay, crabs then. Are they? Yeah, they are. Okay, yeah. Shrimp are crustaceans.
The cockroaches of the sea.
Yeah,
they are. They're so gross. Ugh.
I know, but delicious.
But also good.
I know.
Although, if you ever get, like, the whole body, give me the legs. I can deal with the legs.
I mean...
Give me the body of the crab. I'm like, nope. It's like the pig's head in a roast. Like, nope, this is too.
I'll never say no if they're offered, but it's not something I would go and seek out.
If prepared really well, though, it's super delicious.
It's true.
I still hate shrimp.
So...
Yeah, shrimp is actually kind of gross if you think about it, but it's super delicious.
Let's not think about it.
You remove their poop chute, and it's like...
You gotta remove that, otherwise
it's bad, but like...
That's any animal.
No.
That
has poop chutes.
Has a poop chute
right, but
that you can get to.
If you're dealing with cows, if you're slaughtering a manatee, the cow of the sea,
okay,
you don't necessarily have to take meat out of its poop chute area. There are a lot of other chunks of that thing that you
might
cut
though,
off
especially if you want to make the haggis of the sea.
Chitlins of the sea.
The chitlins of the sea. I don't know. That's different. I
don't know if you're
intestines, right?
Okay, I'm gonna take this argument seriously.
What's the pig of the sea then?
The pig of the sea?
Yeah, what's the pig of the sea? So I can make chitlins. Chitlins is pig intestines, right?
The tuna?
Tuna, I guess, because that's fucking delicious.
I know, right?
Salmon,
super delicious.
Salmon's saltier though, like
yeah, salmon's not as good.
Salmon might be the
it pales in comparison to the filet mignon of the sea. Halibut.
No, tuna. Filet mignon is tuna.
Halibut's amazing.
Fatty tuna?
Fatty tuna is so fucking good.
When was the last time you had halibut? Halibut's fucking amazing.
Halibut's fine.
Fine?
I think it's fine.
That makes me more upset than 8%.
They shouldn't. Anyway, so
for listeners,
they don't need to know. They'll figure it out.
8% is an upsetting number for Micah for a context we won't describe ever. So
it has something to do with education, but anyway.
And
wrong.
Mr. Dr. Cody's Shody. That's all.
All right.
So
Merfolk.
there was this discussion about Europa. I don't know if this is where you got your inspiration from.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
No. This was the conversation we had. It was my idea to begin with.
No, it was my idea. I was telling you. No, I was telling you what the hell I was thinking about. I'm like, how would mer people make tools? Like, what would they? Yeah, like how would they be able to create tools? And I'm like, probably not, because there's no fire underwater, so they wouldn't be able to make anything hot enough.
Sources
you can burn certain metals will burn underwater, or something like magnesium or something. But like, there's a technological step like that you're not going to just fall right into figuring that one out.
We didn't fall right into metallurgy as humans.
No.
It took many centuries.
This is true. But we also had oxygen and fire.
But you have oxygen in water, so you just have to use a different type of igniting source.
Wait.
So you may use magnesium for smelting.
But
you
how likely versus...
the
likeliness is reduced significantly.
Like the tech tree requires that you've already
and air is a
some of the more...
fantastic heat insulator, whereas water is a conductor.
Uh-huh.
It's a completely different environment.
If you're going through that environment and you have many centuries of which to trial and error this the rough way, you can find a way of channeling it that will be more inefficient. You're not building skyscrapers underwater, but you can smelt some metal.
I don't know if skyscrapers is more likely
because water is such a good heat dissipator. You can absorb. Water is really weird in how it can absorb so much heat,
and it keeps it for a long fucking time.
It's ridiculous. Like
you can't get close enough. That's
the properties of water is just really bonkers. So So the whole story of Europa was NASA. It's one of the few missions that Congress had made NASA do.
Post-Apollo, right?
Post-Apollo, to be able to say, you must have a probe on Europa. Which is very strange because normally Congress doesn't give a shit about NASA.
Well, they found the...
Water?
Yeah, no, but it was like basically water volcanoes.
So the odd thing about Europa is that they know for sure that there's water underneath the ice.
And it has a slight ozone.
Ice planet.
It's not strong, but it does have a slight ozone.
And so the strange part about Europa is that, like, because it's a moon and it orbits this planet, but in a funny way, it's like really squishy, like a tennis ball.
It fluctuates because it's so affected by the gravity, because it doesn't have not isometric.
Magnetic?
No. It oscillates in its orbit.
Its axis?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
How it orbits Jupiter, it fluctuates its distance.
Okay.
And that fluctuation actually physically changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, if you look at Europa, there are a lot of scars on the planet, and it's basically like stretch marks.
Because this type of the bounciness of this is creating a lot of friction, so it means that underneath this mild sheet of ice is probably water, and this is only known water that we know in our solar system. So Congress is like, get your ass over there and check it out.
Well, in terms of liquid water, we know a bunch of their ice things in the Kuiper belts. And
right. Water is funny because you always say it's either steam or ice, but in this case, liquid water, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that they surmise is that, like, even if there are creatures inside here, which they hope that there are, because it'll be interesting in life to know if there's life other places, is that they would be totally fucked. Like, they wouldn't, even if it was intelligent, like, they wouldn't be able to get out of the primitive stage, because water being as it is really hard to do metallurgy, which is a necessary thing to be able to make stuff.
This is why dolphins are, as smart as they are, stuck. They are so limited by first of all, their evolution, but also their environment.
Also, they're really creepy animals. Dolphins are super aggressive in a not good way.
Yeah, and they impregnated so many native Brazilians when the conquistadors came there.
That's a fucking lie, but anyway.
There were a lot of Spanish-looking babies in the native Brazilians that they
Micah is confusing dolphins with Christians, but yes.
No.
Anyway.
It's a very funny story.
Oh, God.
In how Christianity abused Catholic Church did so many bad things.
Yeah, they did.
As a Catholic, yes.
Yeah. But these missionaries would blame the pink dolphins of the Amazon as to why women were giving birth to light-skinned European-looking babies. And it certainly wasn't because they were having sex with them. No siree.
No.
They are celibate under God.
Sure they are.
It was the dolphins.
This reminds me of the Chupacabra. Okay. Anyway, I just will say that
Sure.
in the case of the Europa study, they were basically saying that any type of animal in there that is actually capable of intelligence would be totally screwed. They wouldn't be able to.
But that's also on a moon of a larger planet that puts off a bunch of radiation, and it doesn't have the same ozone and oxygenated atmosphere that can sustain life above the ocean. Which, to your point of whether they're amphibious or not, can be...
If they were amphibious, then yes, I think they would be able to move beyond, because they would be able to get out of the water and survive for a good long time. So, like, if it was an amphibious or at least an air breathing and they could survive for periods of time out of the water, then you could, in theory, have, like, areas where you could, in the air, smelt metal. But you wouldn't be able to do it underwater.
Right. And wolves do have a similar evolutionary, track to dolphins, right? Or am I making that up?
No, that's true.
Like if you look back in their common lineage, like it was like one cousin went on land, one cousin went out, one became dolphins, one became wolves.
Right.
Okay, if you say so. I don't know. I've never heard of this.
No, yeah, this is... Okay, if you look at a whale, and you look at the fetus of a whale as it's developing, it does grow feet.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cute.
And then the feet bind into the
tail. It
goes
back into the tail, yeah. It's really... It looks like an elephant,
if you ever look at, like a beluga from the bottom, they look like they have legs. Like, it almost looks like they have legs. It's really...
Legs for days. Sexy as fuck.
It's weird, but kind of cool.
I'm not really into, thinking about whales and dolphins as, like, descendants of wolves.
Phil, you just gotta give narwhals a chance. That horn does a lot.
Narwhals.
It's a tooth, actually. Anyway.
Like, I don't really, like, until you mentioned it, Micah, it's like, I don't really think of them as, like, a real, like, descendants of them. So, like, okay, so basically what happened was an amphibious creature got onto land and smelted and created ironworks, or essentially.
Humans. All right.
And then they're humans.
The religion of wolves.
And then some of those people, instead of turning into humans and apes and monkeys or whatever,
decided that they were going to also continue to live in the water.
They're like, screw this, I'm going back.
Yeah.
No?
And then
the air sucks.
This is way better.
The air sucks.
Air sucks. But we're going to go to the air occasionally just to do some stuff.
Yeah, because it's useful.
So an entirely water world would not be conducive for mechanical engineer.
You would need at least,
unless there was some other way of focusing heat, or they dealt with another metal. Like zinc wouldn't be any more sturdy underwater than it would be in oxygen, right? Zinc? Because zinc's a pretty soft metal.
Well, you can cold form like copper. You can. It's soft enough. Gold, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but
you can hit.
Twist a penny, right?
You can hit. If you had enough force, you can hit copper into whatever shape you wanted. So in theory, they could have like copper if they had access to copper. And
then you're dealing with all the natural resistance of water.
Yes,
to affect that.
So in order to do it, you'd have to have quite a bit of force to.
And also, like you're never gonna get a pure copper vein on the land either, right? Like one of Japan's. I'm picking at Japan a lot. One of the problems with Japan.
It's fine, they deserve it.
I know they do. Sorry, Japan. But
no
you guys
pass
are kind
this
of
time.
assholes.
Rape of non-king. We're fine.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. The problem is that those woodworking of Japan is like super cool. Where they have all those funny cuts, and then they kind of join them together.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the reason why is because their iron quality was terrible. And this is not just because of the fact that they just have poor access, but it's just that their iron veins.
This is what they had to work with. So
is what they had to work with. It was very low quality. And for those listeners that are interested, like Europe had really good quality, but we're not going to talk about Jared Diamond's theory of guns, germs, and steel. The issue with Japan about why they kept on folding their swords, like in Kill Bill, this wonderful sword maker was able to make this wonderful katana.
Well, it's just beating out the impurities
over
over and over
and
over.
They just had to keep doing it because they didn't have a choice.
You have 1,000 folds.
Otherwise,
because
it's gonna
that just
fucking
got you
break.
the best.
Right.
Yeah.
After 2 hits or whatever.
Yeah. That's why cheap katanas chipped all the time.
That's a problem with the merfolk, right? Even if you are able to get rich iron ore, you're not going to be able to burn the impurities out. It's going to just be really shitty.
Yeah.
So, I do think that merfolk having like titanium tridents and stabbing me in World of Warcraft is like, oh come on, like
This
where
is
did they get
totally
this
unrealistic.
This is totally unrealistic.
I can't believe this.
Thank God they don't drink their potions that I'm looting from their dead bodies.
It tastes like Kool-Aid.
I don't think that they're really able to do the next basic civilization building step, which is metallurgy. You kind of need to have that in order to be able to get to the next step after that, which is...
And this is, of course, assuming that there is no magic in this world either. This is a totally scientific universe.
But is
whatever.
in terms of advancing a civilization, is metallurgy that crucial if you have you have such a variety of underwater organisms that you can craft?
Yes.
Like what?
You can have, so instead of how we deal with seaweed, that kind of thing. Could you not, what?
That's seaweed. Kelp is a
okay.
is a basic. It's just a big fucking huge.
Yeah, I was
thick seaweed thing.
mixing it with krill.
That is
Krill.
Krill is totally different.
Yeah, totally small little shrimp thing.
Yeah, they're like little.
That's in my brain.
Yep.
I went
Okay.
K,
Nope,
and
it's
since
cool.
I am not an aquatic species,
All right, go on.
Anyway,
Go on with your thought.
as much as humans have tended to the natural world for our benefit, could these merfolks not bend the natural growth order of oceans to somewhat to their benefit? They go with the traditional elf type thing where they grow their own buildings kind of thing, as opposed to making them. Could you not take these giant groves of kelp and make some type of organization out of them through pruning and...
I mean, maybe but kelp really isn't like a structural. Like you could weave kelp into like baskets. I don't know if you could weave walls not protective walls. Like you could privacy walls maybe.
Right, as much as building a treehouse isn't totally defensive.
But if you're say there's clans of merfolk, that's not gonna hold up. You can just take a knife to a piece of kelp. It's not.
Where are you making the knife if you can't?
Good point. Okay, well maybe claws. You could chew it through it. You could chew through it. All right, you got teeth. All right.
Middle of the night.
You just get a bunch of sea urchins.
Yeah, just
chew into the
yeah,
kelp.
just throw the sea urchins
Yeah.
on there and I don't actually.
So what? They have shields of barnacles?
Barnacles aren't really that.
They don't grow on kelp. Okay, look, I know a lot
No,
of...
you don't have a
tadpoles.
kelp shield. I'm just saying you have some sheet that you can then harness to put barnacles on to actually give you some sense
Yeah,
of
well,
protection.
what's
There
this?
are clams that are freaking large.
You can
that
you can
could
get whale
definitely-
bones. That's probably as best you're gonna get though for a hard material that's easily accessible.
So
that's
the real
still a
question
rare
is
resource.
how do merfolks tame the ocean as much as humans have tamed the land?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, you could certainly use.
They clearly have to be more physically capable than humans are.
Well, and you're also dealing with so humans are pretty much grounded, whereas anything underwater is kind of in this 3-dimensional playing field.
Yeah.
So things are flying all over is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
You can't easily contain livestock, for example. You could make a net, but it would have to be in 3 dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't just make everything is going to be 3 times harder.
Yeah, really.
to
Also,
do.
Animal husbandry in the world of the merfolk would be interesting too. They
Yeah.
don't have the equivalent of sheep or horses.
And
or
could you-
pigs.
Yeah, no.
And could you?
Horses are dolphins. The sheep
No.
are like pufferfish, and the cows are manatees.
No, but I mean, they would just.
You just go down there and milk a manatee.
But how
How do you fence them in? Why don't you
manatees
just
are
swim
freshwater,
away?
aren't they though?
No,
I
saltwater.
thought manatees were freshwater.
I thought they were saltwater too.
Maybe
because
they're
they're off the
saltwater.
coast
They're-
of
they're-
California.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right,
but you have
you're
a
right.
bunch. You have there's this big pod of manatees that goes next to this big Exxon thing in Houston
Okay, all right.
because it's warmer there, and that's
I'll
where
look
they're
it up
flying a
later.
bunch of
Alright.
I
them.
might be just
Might-
having a moment.
Basic thought is that the only way you can have a decent civilization is if you have a lot of a population, so you can create specialists.
Yeah.
Right, so the best that the merfolk really would be maybe in agrarian society, agricultural based, if they grow their own kelp, I guess.
Yeah.
But wasn't that China
or
for
coral
6,000 years?
or
Right.
What else is down there though? For like plants, like it's like that's edible.
I mean, I know that U.S. or like the shipping industry and the fishing industry just basically do terrible things to the ocean and then extract fish out of it. So maybe they could try to do that, but
to the land, like bird is their fancy thing. They just throw giant nets above the water.
But to make nets and all that stuff, you kind of require certain levels of specialization.
And to do it safely.
Also,
because they're in the water as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever like watched people go in and trying to save whales or dolphins or turtles or whatever, they're caught in nets, but they have to be extremely careful that they also don't get caught in their nets.
Those trawlers that are just absolutely fucking terrible.
They go in, but they have to be very careful not to get themselves caught. So they have to kind of like keep distance and just take, their knife or whatever and try to cut it out. But
in terms of like underwater?
Yeah. Because the whale or whatever is like got a, some drag net or something like caught around its tail or something, and it's gonna die at some point because it's weighing them down.
Yeah.
So they go in there trying to save these creatures, but it's still dangerous because if they get caught, they're kind of like also fucked. Like they have to wait until another person can come.
But those type of things are assuming that there is an external force that is applying.
Well, as I'm saying is like
if they try to themselves,
merfolks, if they are using nets to capture
birds or anything that's above the ocean,
or underneath the ocean,
anywhere. If they eat fish and they're trying to catch a school of fish to feed their plethora of other merfolk,
it's a dangerous job.
It would be a very dangerous job because they'd have to be very coordinated and very careful.
Sure, but this is also that's basically what hunter-gatherer step.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's not as difficult with hunter-gatherers. We can set snares.
How many people died hunting a fucking mammoth?
Yeah, I know, but we didn't have to worry about getting caught in our own fucking nets.
No, but we made weapons that
spears
was very not effective against these giant multi-ton beasts.
Yeah. And
that was our primary, most beneficial food source, even though many of the hunting party would die.
If you ever watched a pod of orcas go after a whale.
I would disagree that's how hunting gathering had worked. Maybe it did, but
some teams.
Some teams would just chase an animal to exhaustion, which is why humans are really strangely good at
endurance
distance running.
Yeah.
But for the merfolk, I think that the best they could do is maybe ancient China, where they live in an agricultural-based society.
Or they go after big whales.
Some type of farming.
If they can keep up with that.
But they will never get to the levels of automation, which I think it raises a different question for me, which is, we can clearly see what level they would be stuck at, which is they wouldn't be able to get to mechanization. And without mechanization, you're not going to get into software automation, right?
Yeah, they'll never.
And so they'll never be able to reach that. And to me, the next question is like, well, obviously we are also like merfolk too, right? Like we have a limitation as well. So what is our limitation? What is our imagination that we can't think of?
Oh, we have no idea.
We have no idea, but there's clearly got to be. I mean, there's nothing, but I would like to think that there's probably that level that we have that makes us that prevents us from reaching the next step because we just can't, either because we're limited to the technologies of our time,
to that point,
or where our environment just simply doesn't allow it. And one of those things is like, well, you can't know it until you can see the previous dimension. Well, for us, it's so clear that the merfolk would stop at automation. For them, they would never even think it's a possibility because, again, they don't have the basic tools of metallurgy. But for us, where are we on our third or fourth industrial revolution, depending on how you define definitions? But obviously, like, I think there's got to be more. But we have no idea, and it's probably limiting to our basic environment. Because, again, we can't do this next thing that is so obvious to another generation of us. And it's like a weird, haha, look at this merfolk, they're so screwed.
Yeah, they're so primitive. Look at them. And then we're like sitting here
wait a minute. Like, if they're fucked, like, that probably means that we are too in a different way.
Well, you have the certain islands off the coast of India that have the last untampered civilization.
Pristine.
Yeah, and they have bows. That's their extent of technology. Is bows.
They kill missionaries with those bows, so they're pretty good.
Yeah, because those missionaries fucking deserve it.
They do. Just stay out of there.
Do not go. We're telling you not to go. They need the word of Jesus Christ.
No, they fucking don't.
No, they don't.
They've
been there for human history. They don't. They're fine.
Just leave them alone.
Although, I do want to just like drop a bunch of cell phones. Just like airdrop it over that island.
You're the worst.
It's my favorite movie of The Gods Must Be Crazy. Anyway.
High tides raise all ships, alright? if anything has an anchor down, it's a detriment to everyone.
Anyway.
There is this thought that like if the merfolk are not able to do metallurgy, then they're doomed for eternity or until the sun.
Or is there an alternative? Is there some other thing that they could do that would be as useful and integral to their
But we're also applying Earth-based evolutionary standards. Maybe there are highly chitinous sea creatures that have a shell as hard as diamond, and that can be their tool, and they find a means to harvest it, much like we used early tusks and other dental things as tools.
That's a good point. Yeah,
that's true. There could be other creatures that they could.
But if the most sentient species is aquatic in nature, then that evolutionary tract of that entire planet is also beyond our ideal, because that's something totally alien, because we don't know how evolution would work on a planet such as that.
But then
because we haven't been to another planet that has.
But in this case, they would be relying on the existence of other creatures to fill the niche,
as we did until we figured out how to harness things.
So they wouldn't be necessarily then the masters of their domain. They would be dependent.
The points that made about the physical nature of how water works with heat is incredibly valid. But how ingenuity works is you need to find the best way to do the impossible.
Or you use wood instead of iron, because wood is just convenient and just as useful in this particular
You use kelp instead of stone, because kelp is easier to harness and control, and that's your thatch roofs as opposed to building stone structure.
True.
Or maybe you grow like fucking
But as far as a tool goes, you're not going to build a tool out of... Well, you're not going to build a hammer with kelp.
Yeah.
You're not going to...
I feel like again, I'm biased, but like every civilization needs to reach to the level of Star Trek. And the reason why is because we know...
Where the fuck are we now, Phil?
We're not there. I can tell you that much.
Here's the thing. Star Trek had replicators. They could make something out of any bit of carbon. We don't have that yet. And that's what made that the utopia that Star Trek is. Because they took out all human wants because we found a way to manipulate straight carbon.
And good for them, but for us...
Although...
Don't say that.
No, just Gene Roddenberry had it where like the 21st century was one of the roughest centuries in human history because everyone started understanding what everyone else was saying and a lot of people were killed.
Wow.
He's like right. You go back like the 2000 on in terms of years was like eugenic wars, and like that's where Khan came from. Was in all of this stuff, and like emerging space travel.
I mean, when I think about it, it's like I love Next Generation way more than I ought to of Star Trek, but like for the merfolk, they're fucked. Like when the sun goes supernova and they haven't reached out to other planets, they're gonna be done for. Same for us. But we have a better chance, even though we really don't. I think that
fucking Elon Musk is our hope. We're fucked.
Well, yeah. I mean, if there's
and Jeff Bezos and his penis ship.
Look,
the most
sensitive part of a small penis
spaceship.
Is the man.
The most sensitive part of a spaceship is the man who invented it. Anyway,
I really do feel like there's
painful. Anyway,
there is this need for me to think of a successful civilization is to get out of that planet. I don't know why, but otherwise they're just going to be
able to leave.
Able to leave, and by succeeding to leave. Otherwise, they will be doomed to the star that will burn out.
They're dependent on their environment.
Right. That's just how I feel. So they would be screwed. I mean, we have a better chance, but we're probably screwed too.
Merfolk would have to leave their environment, or be able to. So they have to evolve to become amphibious in order to progress to the next stage, which is we will have to evolve to.
So you're saying no spacefaring species in the entire universe can be of a solely aquatic nature?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Unless I don't know if you... I can't imagine it.
Unless they get technology from other people, like outsiders.
Yeah, they're traders, and they trade for the technology.
Oh,
if they're really good negotiators, and they have...
That's just like traders. They betrayed...
No, not traitors. There's something about T's and D's, voiced and unvoiced consonants. Anyway.
Go.
Anyway. I feel like we had this conversation earlier. Anyway.
It's just your brain making false memories.
No.
I would like to have false memories.
8%?
Okay.
Anyway.
Thanks, Mom, for
we're getting...
I don't know, for allowing you to watch Star Trek Next Generation.
Thanks, Dad, for also spending time with me and letting me watch Star Trek with you. It was nice.
Thank both of my parents for saying that science fiction is a waste of time and would do nothing beneficial for you.
God, that's terrible.
I appreciate that my parents never said that to me. That's good. They were wrong. Your parents were wrong.
Your parents are wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's their opinion, but their opinion is wrong.
Yeah, I think we could say it's their truth, but
their truth was not factual.
Their truth was bullshit. It's not true, that's perception, and they're wrong. Anyway.
Bye, Mom.
Okay, bye, Mom.